Hi, how are you?
I'm good. What is
Thanks
up
for
with
being patient
this?
with me this afternoon.
I have a glare, so kind of shiny, I guess.
I think you're okay.
All right.
So, whenever you feel ready, I'd love for you to go ahead and share your story with me and others.
Okay. Um, I'm a survivor of 24 years of domestic abuse. Um, I grew up in it. My parents divorced. My real dad and my mom, they divorced when I was young. Um, I think I was 4 the last time I actually saw him. And my stepdad was extremely abusive. I used to fall asleep as a little girl listening to my stepdad beat the crap out of my mother. Um, and he was very controlling, especially to my mother, but also to my brother and I. Um, when I grew up, well, okay, before we go to that point, I had actually dropped out of high school just to get away from it. When I was 18, I was just like, I don't need to deal with this anymore. And I left. Um, I didn't go far. I live in northern Minnesota, so I only went like 2.5 hours away, but it got me out of the house. Honestly, there's not enough done, I don't think, with kids coming forward and telling people at school or whatever it may be about what's going on at home, because when somebody would come over to do that check, they would see how happy my little sister is and dismiss the whole thing. So I kind of felt defenseless. But you grow up, when you grow up in it and when it starts happening to you, you learn to be quiet because one, you don't want attention, and two, you fear that nobody's going to want to believe you. And maybe they do, but then there's three. They don't want to get involved. So it's hard to get out. It's hard to talk about it, but it needs to be talked about. Um, After I grew up, I married into it twice. I was 24 years old, and I have to say my first marriage wasn't as bad abusively as my second. My first marriage was more verbal and mental abuse than anything else. Um, and that did enough. I was over 250 pounds because I didn't care anymore. Um, Sorry, I live downtown, so you're gonna hear trucks.
You're fine.
Um, but my second marriage, 6 months after I said I do, he drank all the time. He threatened his own life. Um, I was cornered a lot. I work in the medical field, so even as a strength trainer, I was learning at the time, but I'm much more skilled now in the gym. And even with that, you don't want to fight back because an officer is going to see it how it is. You know, if he's in worse condition than you are, you might be going to jail, or both of us might be, and with an assault charge I could lose my entire career. But even trying to get him help, it made me look like the bad person. I never talked about what was going on at home. I always blamed the bruises on something else. Um, my 4-year-old son stood up to me and said, "Mom, I'm not going to listen to you, and I don't have to." Because what he was seeing was exactly that. And he's 6 now, and I still have to teach him not to hit mom. It's a cycle. And we want to speak out, but the thing is that, again, we don't want the judgment. My second husband had a lot of influence in the town we lived in, and he was always seen as this happy person. But he always cared more about his public appearance than anything else. So in public, he was smiley, happy, and everything, but at home, behind those closed doors, it was a different story. And so by the time I was 26, I was divorced twice. It's not what I wanted for my life. I was never a party girl. I just wanted a family. I wanted kids. I wanted to settle down. It's too short to waste, but I realized I could use TikTok as a platform to actually talk about serious issues. I've helped numerous people create a plan to get out of domestic abuse. A couple of them have created TikTok accounts just to reach out to me because they were told that I could help them. And I don't turn anyone away. It doesn't matter if it's domestic abuse, somebody's suicidal, somebody is suffering from PTSD, whether it be civilian or military related. Most of my followers are survivors, victims, soldiers or veterans, people who have been suicidal. When I was 16, I was suicidal because of what was going on at home. And this last fall, my ex-husband, second ex-husband, committed suicide, and the community was blaming his depression on me, finally admitting he had an issue, but saying that I was the reason for his depression and that I was ungrateful of what he gave me. When you hear that enough, it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to start to believe it. And that was my downfall part too. So I know how people get to this point. I know how they feel, and I can relate. But I've also become an escape artist for leaving domestic abuse. That's why I live downtown. When I left my second husband, I needed to be somewhere where it wasn't exactly private, but if my location services was left on, he couldn't figure it out, you know? I help these people create a plan, and for the most part, if they follow through with exactly what I say, and they don't hesitate or change it any, then it works first time. There was one case we had to create plan number 2. But you know, I've had 3 concussions. Every relationship I've ever been in was controlling, narcissistic, or verbal, or physical. I'm much more careful. I look for red flags and I help people notice them. Nobody looks for anything like this. They always hope for something good. But when it came to my marriages, they didn't change until after I said I do. I mean, number 2 looks pretty darn good, I tell you what. I mean, nobody in town had anything bad to say about him, and it makes sense now.
All right.
So that's kind of my story. Now I'm 28, I'll be 29 this fall, and my son will be 7 this fall, and he's creating a better understanding. His dad and I are definitely better friends than we ever were in a relationship. But when it comes to people like my second husband, I can honestly tell you that narcissism goes beyond the grave. So, he had contacted me a week before his suicide and asked me if there was anything we can do to fix our relationship. He never moved on. At this point, we were divorced for over a year. And I told him when I filed for divorce, I meant it. He was contacting me through Facebook. I had changed my number, gotten a different phone, everything. So he says, tell me now if you don't want me in your life, I'll disappear. I said, I meant it. And exactly a week later, he was gone. So narcissism does go beyond the grave. People need to know that if I've had people worry about if I leave, what's going to happen to their mentality. I'm worried about what they'll do if I leave. People need to understand that that is not their problem. When it comes down to your life, that is your problem. A lot of them are broken down to the point where they don't know what they're worth anymore. They don't think anybody's going to miss them because how can this happen in their life? How come nothing good ever happens to them? How come all their worth is nothing? And that's not true. It's staying in that situation is more toxic, not only to you and your life, but to the people that are also in your life, like your children. With growing up in it, I dealt with a lot of self-esteem and various depression issues, panic attacks. And I've learned several ways to get through that. And I just want to make sure that other people aren't risking their lives. Staying in situations like this are part of the suicide rate for, just the general one. This has nothing to do with the 22 a day issue. That's separate. But in general, that statistic, people just want out. They don't want to feel the pain anymore. And it doesn't have to be that way. They're always afraid to come forward because judgment, and they shouldn't have to feel that way. It's not just for women. Men are victims too. With men, it comes down to the point of they're taught not to retaliate against a woman. They're taught not to hit women and always respect them no matter what. And because of masculinity, who's going to believe them, right? And again, people don't want to get involved. They don't want to believe it's happening. So they don't speak out. I think men speak out less than women because of that. But women can be abusive too. They want to control a situation. They know a man's not going to hit them back. So, you know, um, they'd rather just take it. And it shouldn't have to be that way. So that's kind of my story and background on what I do.
Great. So when you think back to situations where you knew that people that were going to intervene weren't going to find anything, how do you think that could change in our world?
Honestly, I've noticed with helping people that the laws on domestic abuse would do better to come up with one national law instead of each state's particular law, because it's taken me time to, like, this person will be from Georgia, this next person's from Rhode Island, Minnesota is like, here they wanted proof. I pretty much needed to plant cameras. And when the officer said that, my ex-husband was paranoid that I had done that. And he kept searching around the house and very carefully saying whatever it is he was going to say with this creepy look on his face. And it shouldn't have to be like that. You know, there are people that lie about it, but in general, when it does happen, when it's obvious that it's going on, there needs to be some justice for it. And ultimately, a national law and understanding of what happens to domestic abuse. Because I have helped a person in Utah, and it seems like they favor more on the female side. They don't have much for domestic abuse laws or justice for men. There are actually attorneys that are specific in rights for men that my victim is working with right now. So I think that's crazy. It shouldn't have to be like that. There should be more resources for people who are trying to get out. Because when I help these people create a plan, the first thing I'm trying to figure out is where they're gonna go. I need to know. Like, I can't just say you have to live in your car. There's a lot of times they don't have the time to save up. Or maybe they are the ones who have the money, but they don't have anywhere to go. So it's like, is there one person that you trust? And, you know, half the time there's not. So, I mean, I don't know, shelters. Right now, I have my PayPal linked to TikTok, and anything that goes into that either goes to awareness for mental health, like PTSD, depression, and anxiety, but also having that fund if they need a hotel room for domestic abuse. Because sometimes it's bad enough, you just need to leave. If I get a call at 3 a.m, I almost died. I don't know what to do. You know, I try to have that. And I never expect anything in return because I know what it's like. Nobody believes you. You have nowhere to go. But there definitely needs to be more talk about it too. People are afraid to come forward. And they're afraid that people who haven't been through it won't understand. If you're telling people to just get on with it or move on with your life, or stop living in the past, or it's just a tough situation, it'll pass. Okay, so then as a survivor, I can tell you they're hitting a mental brick wall. Okay, how do I get over it? How do I get through this? How do I deal with this? They're talking to you because they need help. Those phrases on any of the topics I talk about are tough. Nobody knows how to deal with it. If they're ever complaining about an issue, legit, they're having trouble with it. And they're not going to talk to you or anyone else if they don't think anybody's going to believe them.
So now that we're in a weird time of the world where colleges are closed, not all of them, but most of them, places are just not open right now. And there's probably a risk that we would have to do another quarantine. We never know. From day to day, I have no idea what's going to happen. So that's kind of put me in a mindset of thinking about people that are going through this and how
that has been an issue. Shelters still need to happen. Police officers, counties, states need to have a plan for when it's obvious, when these people are scared, when they show up. And it's not always a separation thing. This person needs to leave for the night. No, it's okay to give them the resources they need. I've had quite a few cases where my victims didn't even know about victim services that might be in their county. They've never had to deal with this. One person had so much proof, just audios, pictures, videos that she had, and she didn't know where to submit it to. And I found out about it later. I was like, wait a minute. This isn't just battery. You've got them for a heck of a lot more than that. But they need to be speak out about it. There's commercials for everything on TV. Why can't we have something for that? For Polk County, this is what it is. Why can't it be on the radio? Your radio stations advertise the dirt bike races. Why can't we advertise, if you're going through domestic abuse, call this number for your county? It's simple things, but it's so silent. And we're the ones afraid to talk. Everybody else should be encouraging us to talk. So it took me a long time to come out about it.
So how do you think during this time it's harder for people to come forward because they feel so trapped?
I feel like honestly, I've found that in a couple cases, it's escalated because nobody's working. I still think that it's just as hard either way to come forward because the situation is the situation. But now where are they going to go? For some people, going to work is their vacation from home, when it should be the other way around. Going home is a vacation. I feel like it's definitely harder to deal with now at home if both of you are home all the time. But coming forward is just as hard either way. But now it's harder to figure out where they're going to go, how they're going to get out. And creating that plan hasn't been as easy as it was before this. So, no, I don't think it's harder now. But when it comes to getting out, yes.
So what do you think would be something people that feel like they can't get out because of this lockdown situation, what are kind of their first steps that they should take, or their mindset that they should be in, as opposed to being in the mindset of this is impossible for me to get out?
It's not impossible. I've helped personally. You need to find someone you can trust. And I always say only one person. Because the more people you tell, people talk. You need to tell one person you trust not to talk. But if they're feeling like they're stuck and with the times the way they are and they can't get out, I found that some counties are closed. You can't get a hold of victim services. So honestly, a lot of dead ends have been created. And that's why people have reached out to me. I really don't have an answer as to, I do want to say that before all of this, try to get a hold of your victim services. Get in contact with, there are domestic abuse centers in some areas, battered women's shelters, and domestic abuse advocates, and they will help you. They will hide you just like I do. And at this point, I don't know what shelters are doing. I've literally had to personalize plans. And that's why people have literally created TikTok just to confront me. But with the pandemic, they definitely need to be doing something, because they can't be shutting down important things like that when people need this help.
So do you think the internet has been a helpful way to feel like there's still help for people out there, even in a time where, like you said, victim services are not as easy to navigate right now?
Yeah, if they know their resources, there are people that they can get in touch with. Each state has something. Counties will, I know my county has a list of services. I guess I haven't checked in other states whether or not they keep a list of services, but the internet is helpful, and apps that bring you together like TikTok has been useful too. The hashtag domestic violence awareness is a hashtag full of awareness videos and people talking about the issue. Or DV survivor is another hashtag. That's one I use. But, Instagram, people rely on apps and things like that. And when it comes to TikTok, when they can see your mindset, the things you teach, one thing about survivors and victims going through the issue is that they always feel like it's their fault. So you'll find that they apologize a lot. One, for even asking for help. Two, they feel like they're bugging you. But they'll keep reaching out because you tell them it's okay and they don't have to apologize. And that's good, because keeping it all bottled in causes more of an issue. But yes, the internet has been the thing right now, the thing that everybody relies on.
So how do you feel personally when people are coming forward to you? How does it feel to be able to have an impact on that person's life and try to help them through something that you've been through?
Hands down, I won't turn them away. Um, that's the whole reason I started talking about it. It makes me feel defensive because nobody needs to go through that. I ask a series of questions like, um, has he ever hit you? What kind of abuse? What does he do? Or she? Um, tell me about what goes on at home. And based on their answers, I'll ask more questions. Are there kids involved? You know, they need to be prepared to take very few things. When I create a plan, they need to follow it to a T because I make these people untraceable. There are too many apps out there where you can be tracked by your phone number. If you have an iPhone family plan or something like that, I just got an iPhone. I'm still learning about it. I know that if your iCloud is combined, then you have shared information. So there's a series of things that, questions I ask. I never turn them away. My DMs on TikTok are open to both followers and non-followers because I can't keep up with everybody following me. I was told TikTok has a limit of like 10K that you can follow. So I opened my DMs to both followers and non-followers. And one thing I do when they message me is I go right to their page. You know, half the time they don't even have content. And like I said, sometimes people have downloaded the app just to reach out to me because a friend said that I might be able to help. And the friend follows me. But if they do have content, you can guarantee that they've expressed the emotion. There was a case for one girl that I helped where she posted on TikTok and it made her known for it because it was so visual and obvious. But yeah, I don't turn anybody away. I get pretty defensive. I work right away in creating that plan.
So based on everything that you've been through, what do you think is the most important thing you've learned that you take with you through your future in relationships or just in day-to-day life?
What I call a never give up mindset. I tell my followers and anyone who reaches out to me for any topic that there is a positive thing that comes out of every situation, whether the situation is positive or negative. There is a lesson to be learned in everything. And it's going to be hard for you to see at first, but initially, once you calm down, what was the lesson that you learned? And what is the positive thing that came out of it? And if all you can think about, or the only thing you could come up with is that you survived, that's a pretty dang good thing. I was about ready to cuss there. But people going through domestic violence don't always think surviving was the best thing. But it is. A lot of times there's a lot of positives you can come up with. Maybe it's not just your life, but you saved your children's lives. Now you don't have to feel this way. You're finally free. You don't have to deal with being beaten anymore. How many did I just come up with? But the lesson is always different in every negative situation. Um, you know, even people who come to me with suicide, I tell them that true strength is not being able to follow through with it. And a lot of times my domestic abuse victims end up being suicidal. I'll check on them all the time, because I remember being at that point. True strength is not being able to follow through with it, whether you've created a plan or you were just randomly thinking about jumping off this bridge. You couldn't do it. And that took strength because you wanted to do it. You have something left to live for, and you couldn't do it. So now we need to get you away from this point. And I always tell it to people like it is. Anybody on my page will tell you I don't sugarcoat anything. You get nowhere in life by sugarcoating your opinion. So
Well,
that's where I'm at.
I think one thing that's really important about people like you is that when somebody is seeking help and they feel like they're going to a resource who can't directly connect with them, maybe they can give them some advice, but that advice is so much more valuable coming from somebody who has literally been through what you've been through. So they understand exactly what you're talking about. When you're saying I'm having this issue, they immediately get it. So
Yeah,
I'm hoping you would be okay with me sharing your account as a resource for people. Is that something you'd be comfortable with?
go for it. Because the more people I help get out of this situation, it's not just going to help the domestic violence numbers go down, hopefully. But depending on the situation, it could put some of those abusers away. And more than that, probably lower the suicide rate, because when people want out, they feel like their only way out is by ending everything. And that's not your answer. Please don't do that. But go ahead and share it. A lot of times they need a plan. Would you mind if we talk about kind of how to do that so that
Absolutely.
people get a general idea of what to do?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, people need to keep a journal. Dates and times things have happened, and a brief description of what went on. Who did what, who said what. If when you're trying to get your evidence, if that's something you're trying to do is prove that it's happening, I have told people to set their phone on conference mode when they record things and set it up face down on the table, and it records everything going on. Might not get video, but you can tell whose voice is whose. Take pictures of your bruises. When you're trying to get out, you need to take, while they're taking a nap or while they're at work, grab your social security card, your birth certificate, at the very least for important things. One bag of clothes. Take very little because you can get a police escort later to get your stuff. Know where you're going. As soon as you leave, you need to turn your location services off. And that, when you do that, it doesn't apply to Snapchat. Put yourself in ghost mode, please. I've had people found, and then I had to relocate. So, locations off and ghost mode. And then they need to stay off. You need to go on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, everything, and set your profile to your friends only, delete these people, and change all of your passwords to something that has nothing to do with you and is impossible for them to figure out. I make everybody do this. And eventually I always tell them that they need to get a different number and a different phone. This is because of those apps that track you based off of your phone number. And also with the new phone thing, that phone has a new serial number. So they become untraceable, but eventually if they use Google Maps, they're gonna have to turn that location services on. So we don't wanna have to do that before they're put in jail or whatever the case may be. So you need to make sure that you don't keep in contact with any of your abuser's friends or family. Keep in touch with your friends, but until law enforcement has made their move, don't tell anybody where you are. There should be one person that knows where you are in case you're found. And that's why I always ask them, is there one person that you trust? Maybe they've been alienated from their own family, so sometimes they have a friend or coworker at work. But one person needs to know, because if we can't get a hold of you, that one person needs to say, I haven't heard from her in this many days, and do that missing persons report. Especially if there are kids involved. If they can't find you or the kids, there's a problem. But I always tell them to call me no matter what. Typically I use Snapchat for people who I'm helping, because if their abusers get a hold of their phone and my number is there, then I need to turn off all my location services and everything. And we start off with Snapchat. There's like a handful of TikTokers that have my phone number. So, or Instagram. My Instagram is linked to my TikTok bio. I've had them reach out through there. So.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think your message is really powerful, and I think there's a lot of people that suffer and say nothing for the reasons that you named. So I thank you so much for being brave enough to, being strong enough to be able to say it like it is, and without filtering yourself or apologizing for yourself, because I know that's a lot of it in the beginning.
It takes a lot for a person to get to this point. And that's another thing I've done, is help them build their mentality after the fact. I might be 28, but going through a life of issues, I know that people have actually committed suicide for a lot less. And using my experiences to help people get away from all the issues I've been through, and learn how to grow from that, build strength through their pain. That's what my hashtag on TikTok is about. Hashtag FoxFam is all about building strength through pain on all the topics I talked about. And domestic abuse needs to be more of a public issue. Nobody should be afraid to talk about it. When one of my followers gets the strength to talk about their own story, I usually hear about it, and then I end up in their live, or being tagged in the video, and I share it on my page. I will talk about the strength they just shared, because I know how difficult it is. For the longest time, they will apologize for bugging you or whatever it is that they feel they need to apologize for. But it's because they don't feel that they're worth the help, and everybody's worth it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And
Reach out to me anytime.
absolutely, I will. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, take care.